How many times have I been in the harbor area going back and forth to Staten Island from the southern tip of Manhattan to the North Shore, right by Borough Hall and Ferry Hawk Stadium? The Great Staten Island Ferry. Spent a lot of time as a kid going back and forth when they let you put cars underneath. There was no plank at that time, Verrazano Bridge, so my mother would load us up in the 1954 Old Betsy station wagon, white wall tires, wood panels on the side. We'd have to go pick up my father, Chester, a merchant seaman who was coming in through the Straits of the Verrazano, the Kilvan Kill, the Arthur Kill, and then to the tank farms on the Gulf Deer for many years, and then cargo container ships until he retired. And at times, he'd be laid up in the fog out there, and they wouldn't let him in, but we were out there in Staten Island. We'd go over to the Staten Island Zoo. Lou, at that time, my mother would say, hey, let's kill some time till the fog burns off. And the only thing they had back then in the 60s were horseshoe crabs. Pet a few horseshoe crabs. Remember, horseshoe crabs were everywhere. You thought they were old German helmets from World War II that had washed up on the shore, Jamaica Bay, Plum Beach. But anyway, I digress. The reason I'm playing this foghorn is I've been trying to warn my very dear friends in Staten Island, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, about how you're getting screwed over by Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, and mayor of the illegal aliens. Not my mayor, it's not your mayor. And to Staten Island, I will always be grateful. It's the borough that I won overwhelmingly against Eric Adams in the general election. I crushed him there, but lost everywhere else. Notice the former king, what was that? The king of Staten Island. They made the film, Pete Davidson. You know, he was like a mameluke, like Frank Morano, living in the basement of his mother's house. Then he started doing good. He had the condo right on the North Shore. He decided to abandon ship. He got a condo in Brooklyn Heights overlooking the East River and all the skyscrapers in Manhattan. And then he packed up and he headed out to Beverly Hills. And let me tell you something. He just abandoned ship. And, hey, look, a lot of people are abandoning ship in New York. It's part of the mass exodus that continues. Except Pete Davidson has said, Lou, that he's unsure where that ferry is that he bought in Staten Island. Remember, what was it, a year ago? He was going to turn it into an entertainment complex, a restaurant. He's now said he doesn't know where it is. He thinks it's sunk. He thinks the Staten Island ferry that he bought has sunk. Nobody will tell him where the ferry is. Hey, Pete Davidson, your elected officials in Staten Island, or previous elected officials, because you've abandoned ship, they probably don't even know. Pete Davidson called it the Titanic 2. He says, I've been investing money into that money pit filled with cockroaches falling apart. It was going to be an entertainment extravaganza. Hey, Pete, wherever you are in Beverly Hills in a drug-induced psychosis because you said you got ripped off buying this ferry because you were stoned at the time. Guy, Eric Adams may be housing illegal aliens on that ferry. How do you know? He's not. He has surveyed through the Department of Buildings and Department of Homeless Services 750 properties. They have vetted out 500 of them, and some of them are in Staten Island. And I wouldn't doubt it's your missing in action ferry. Can anyone do us a favor for the expat Pete Davidson, that schmuck, the guy who abandoned ship, right? Can we put out an SOS to Borough President Vito Fossella, all the elected officials, my very dear friend, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, everybody? Could you find this idiot's ferry? I'll bet you it's housing illegals. Now, 2 weeks ago, I announced on Sid in the Morning with his friends, and naturally I'm a fiend and a foe, that there were 2 locations that the Eric Adams administration had visited to see if they fit the specs to house illegal aliens, part of Eric Adams' kickback scheme. You scratch my belly, I scratch yours. They find a location, they make a sweetheart deal, Frank Carone and his associates, they get their slice, and then NGOs come in and they get their slice. It's a racket. It's a kickback racket. And I told you they were looking at two sites 2 weeks ago. The old St. John Villa Academy campus, which had just about gone 90 years. A very good school. And it was owned by, let me see, I think it was the Sisters of John the Baptist. And after 90 years, it was low enrollment. They couldn't sustain it any longer, so they sold it. Borough President Jimmy Otto was the guy in charge at the time, Republican conservative of Staten Island, sold it to New York City, and they were supposed to develop some educational facilities there. Well, they've looked at that location. It's about a 6-acre campus. I warned you about that. And then I told you that they were looking at the St. John's University campus, which is up for sale now, and maybe another year there'll be some students there. They've trimmed their student roster down to about 800 from a few thousand, and they're putting it up for sale, and they got the real estate broker, Civilis, right there on Grimes Hill. Huge property, and I said 2 weeks ago, they've already visited the 16 acres. Come on, look at Jimmy Otto, your former borough president at Utreditor, who went to work for the Eric Adams administration, and now he's the buildings commissioner. Buildings, the most corrupt agency of all the corrupt agencies. I don't care who the mayor was. Michael Buttigieg, Rudy Giuliani, Bloomberg, de Blasio. It is the most corrupt of all the city agencies because they give the building inspectors scatol, escarole sandwiches and lettuce sandwiches in order to pass. But the point being is they've already looked at the campus facility on behalf of the city, and Department of Homeless Services has surveyed all the empty space. And right now, St. John's University, well, last time I looked, Lou, they were Catholic, right? You know, even though they're no longer St. John's Redmond, they're the St. John's Storm, but they're an extension of the main campus in Queens. And let's see, the priests, the few that are left, all the lay teachers. Let's see, who do they answer to? Isn't that Cardinal Dolan? Oh, that's right. Padre, Filio, Spiritu Sanctum. Yes, there he was, hosting the Catholic Charities annual fundraiser the other night. Never once asked to pass the wicker basket around for donations to house the illegal aliens. But this is the guy who started all this mishigash, Cardinal Dolan. Remember what he said in August when the first buses started to roll into the Port Authority, courtesy of Governor Abbott, who was so overloaded in Texas. And he said, where do you want to go to the illegals who couldn't speak English? And they said, Nueva York. And who was waiting for them? Santa Claus there. In the church vestments, Cardinal Dolan, he always likes to go, ha, 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 like Santa Claus, and this is what he was saying.
These just aren't cases. These just aren't problems. These just aren't statistics. These are not just refugees and asylum seekers in the plural. These are people with names and with dads and moms. They've had a terrible journey. But yet they're filled, I don't see any animosity or they're filled with gratitude. They said people have helped us on the way. The church has been there.
Yeah, Catholic Charities, none of their money, all money from the feds. They've become the largest NGO contracted to bring in the illegal aliens once they step over the border. Once they step over the border, Mexico into the United States, or if they get their easy pass, fly into Montreal, Toronto, and walk to the American border with Canada, and then they all want to go to Nueva York. And Catholic Charities is more than happy to pay for whatever means of transportation they want. You want to fly, you want to take Amtrak, you want to pound the hound, Catholic Charities is there with the tickets and the petty cash. And remember, you never hear of them taking care of Ukrainian refugees, true asylum seekers, as the war grinds on there. No. Why? Because Cardinal Dolan has done the analytics. He doesn't have to pay for it. We, the federal taxpayers, pay for it. And it nourishes the empty churches on Sunday, where the English-speaking Mass, you can roll a Brunswick bowling ball through and not hit anybody. For the Spanish language masses later in the day, packed to the rafters. And it's the only hope that the Roman Catholic Church has in North America and Canada and the United States to survive is to have these illegal aliens, most of whom are Catholic, most of whom speak Spanish, to flood their churches out of gratitude to the Catholic Church that's using our federal tax dollars, not theirs, to bring them in and keep them here. And then they'll have a baby because, let's face it, the Catholic Church does not believe in marital contraceptives or condoms. So the anchor baby will come, and before they get their federal hearing 12, 13 years from now for asylum, that's it. Can't send them back. And Dolan knows this, and he plays this, and the politicians, they march to his beat. So I was interested in this St. John's University now up for sale. And immediately, Borough President Vito Fasella said, wait a second, I am unaware of what they intend on using the campus for, but I'm telling you, no way, no how will they be depositing illegal aliens on the campus. Vito, how are you going to stop it? You're going to stand in front of the Catholic Church? Come on, Vito, you know, it's a fait accompli. Come on, Vito. 2 weeks ago, you should have said Sliwa was right. He called it out, St. John's University on Staten Island, the campus. They want to use it for the illegals, Eric Adams, and the St. John Villa Academy, now that the city already owns because they bought it back when Jimmy Otto, El Traditor, now the buildings commissioner, sent his inspectors to do the specs. Wake up, Staten Island. Wake up. Eric Adams is screwing you like he's screwing everyone else in New York City and in the surrounding areas where he's shoving these illegal aliens at who? The sucker taxpayers' expense here in New York City. Vito Fasella, you better move el rapido because the hand of Cardinal Dolan will be upon this. Let's see if you defy the Cardinal the way I have defied the Cardinal and Catholic Charities and called them out.